Hello, I'm here to tell you how to grow or start seedlings, tomato seedlings, and the particular make is Gardener's Delight, which is a well-known brand. It's disease-free and produces lots of fruit, so it's a good starter for anyone. Now, most people growing tomato plants don't want hundreds of tomato plants. Like myself, I would normally grow about 2 or 3 plants. So when planting your seedlings, it's very important that you use the right compost. There's 2 types really. You really want to use seedling compost, which you'll note from the way I'm handling it, it's light and fluffy. There's hardly any stones or bits in it. The general compost, which you'll find also at a garden centre, like this compost as well, it's got more bits in it and it's not really for seedlings. However, you can still use it, don't get het up on it too much, and you can instead you can sieve, so it still gives a nice light texture. The reason you don't really want this is because it's got too many lumps and bumps in it and it stops the seedlings coming through. So at your garden centre, you're looking for something like this, which is young plant compost. This is general compost, which is the one I showed you with all the bits, but you can still use it, but you just have to sieve it. Okay, let's move on to the container. There's lots of different containers you can use, but to save plastics, this is a container that you can use to grow seedlings. I would suggest about 3. You would pierce holes in the bottom so water drains out, and then the propagator bit which is the top, that would go on the top, and that would seal the seeds, encourage them to grow faster, but we'll talk about that a bit more later. The soil is important, so I'm going to use the lighter soil here and I'm going to fill up the container. Not all the way up to the top, because you'll need a bit of room to plant your seeds and put stuff on the top, soil on the top. Okay, so these are your tomato seeds. They come in a smaller packet. I have used some already. And you're just pouring them out onto your hand, and I want to pour about, I want to use about 3. That's it, so 3 seeds, and then I'm just going to put them on top of the soil individually, and then I'm just going to press down on them just so that they make contact with the soil, and then with my hands I'm just going to use some more soil and just going to sprinkle it over those seeds. Light soil, you'll notice. A bit more. Okay, then firm in. Okay, now obviously they need water. Very important, they need water, but we're not going to water them from the top. I'm going to water them from below. So now the seeds are in the soil. It's very important that you label. This one came with its own label, Gardener's Delight. I'll just be putting that in there. Nice other little ideas which I've done for a basil. You go to a coffee shop, this is only a spoon, and you can put a tomato. You could put a tomato label in there, which is quite a nice thing. It's really important that you label your seeds. I'm now going to put this top on. That's to seal them. That's basically to encourage them, to keep them warm and to encourage them to break through to the soil. Okay, so you've got your seedlings in the container, and as I said, you're not watering them from the top. The reason you're not going to water them from the top, it could mess around with the seed and the soil, so it's best to water from the bottom. You've got your pierced holes at the bottom, about 3, and you're just going to place them into the tray of water, and I'd leave that for about half an hour, and then after half an hour you take it out, you empty the water, and then you would put that back on there, and then it could go on a windowsill, or it could remain in your greenhouse like it is for me. and then you'll be checking this around about every 5 days. And all you're going to do is you're just going to open it up, check it, and if the soil seems dry, which it will be, then you do the same process. You put some water at the bottom, leave it for half an hour, and then the soil will become moist, and then you empty the water back in the container and just leave it on the windowsill. After about 14 days, you are going to hopefully see seedlings appear. This is what you're going to have. You're going to see seedlings appear, and these are a couple that I did a little while ago. This is another ice cream container that I've used. These are around about 21 days old, and I only planted 2 in there, but you can plant 3. And it may be a little bit earlier, but they need what we call repotting on, which means they need to be in their own pot, a bigger pot, to develop them further. Now we're going to fill this pot with this compost, light compost still, and you're not going to fill it right to the top. In fact, you're going to take some stuff out. You're going to fill it sort of quite low, and you'll see why in a minute. Now with tomato plants, sometimes they can be a little bit fragile, so it's really important when getting the seedlings out that you don't grab them and try and pull them out of the soil, because they're just going to break. You get right underneath. You can use a stick or anything like that to get them underneath, and you get right underneath the plant. You want to dislodge it. Okay, so being careful. Now once it's out like that, then you can use your hands, still with the stick underneath, and you holding onto a leaf, because you don't want to damage the root, the actual stem. Okay, and you want to try and take as much as the roots as you can, but again, it's not essential. But notice where I'm holding it. I don't want the tomato plant to damage. There you go. Soil's falling away, but it doesn't matter. It's a good example because I've still got the leaf and the roots are intact, and that's absolutely fine. It's going to come away anyway. So we've got a little bit of soil at the bottom. Let's put a bit more in there. And I want to plant the tomato seedling quite deep, so it's covering a lot of the stem. What that does is it thickens up the stem later on. Make a little hole, put the stem in there, and then we're just filling up around. You don't really need to push it all in. You don't want to damage those roots. Holding the stem, sorry, holding the leaf. Stone there, we don't want that. And just firming around, and then just putting a bit more soil in. There we go. And that's in there now. That's on its own. It's been planted quite deep, and that will thicken out that stem. It looks a bit fragile at the moment, but I promise you it will get stronger and stronger. And you just make sure you keep it in the light, and you water it, I would say once a week. You don't want to over water it. Once a week, you're just making sure that the soil is moist. And then you can place it on a tray of water, just fill that up with water and leave it for half an hour, and then you'll see the soil moisten up. And you can leave the tray there, but then empty any leftover water, and you just place it onto a sunny spot, and that can be in a windowsill in your kitchen, or as I've got in the greenhouse here. And then the plant will develop. And I think in my next video I'll go through on the development, but just to give you some idea for the next video, this is a tomato plant. It's in a slightly bigger pot, but like I said, I'll talk about how we transfer that seedling into a pot like this in my next video. Thank you.